Hey there, Sooner fans. Welcome back to Quick Slants. Parker Thune, Jesse Crittenden here with you talking Sooner softball today. And Jesse is our lead softball guy at OUinsider.com. He's at pretty much every single game, giving you wall-to-wall coverage of the team and everything that goes on with Patty Gasso and her program, the program that has become the Titan, John Wooden's UCLA, the Lakers of the late 90s, early 2000s, the New York Yankees, whatever you want to compare it to. The reality is OU softball has dominated the sport at the collegiate level over the last few years and really over much the last quarter century since Patty Gasso took over as Oklahoma softball coach. So, Jesse, overarching thoughts on the season that has been thus far, and as we look ahead to the Women's College World Series in not much more than a month at this point, I guess the natural place to start is, you see any way that this Sooners team can be challenged, any apparent vulnerability that they have?
Yeah, that's a good question. They did lose to Baylor
Once.
like 2 months ago, one time. So if you're asking me if it's possible, I guess the answer is technically yes. It really does feel that way, that there's just nobody that can compete with this team. I mean, again, you look at, they lead the country again in offense with over 8 runs per game. They also lead the country in shutouts with 26, or actually 27 now after last night's win over Tulsa. So that's the thing about this OU softball team, man, is they're not doing it on just with offense or just with defense. Both their offense and their defense is better than anybody else in the country. And yeah, it kind of goes to your question, and I know it's in a joking way, but they make teams feel overwhelmed and helpless. And I think I had somebody ask me the other day, what is it like to cover OU softball? I think it was you and Steely that asked me, like, what is it like to cover OU softball? And the reality is it's unlike anything I've ever covered, just how dominant they are. And so, I mean, they've already locked up the Big 12 regular season title before the final series of the regular season this weekend against Oklahoma State. I mean, it's crazy to lose a player like Jocelyn Allo from last year's team, and they might be better this year. That's how good they are.
Do you already have your game story written when you show up? You're just like, okay, here's the template. I'm just gonna have to substitute out the final score, and okay, who hit a home run tonight?
No, that's. I think you have to try to find ways to keep things interesting, and not that OU isn't interesting, but I think they are so dominant that it can be difficult to find new ways to cover this team. But I mean, I think we've actually got softball availability tonight. I'm going to get one-on-one with Riley Boone, who, if players have watched, or if anybody has watched the team this year, they've noticed how big of an impact Riley Boone has had. I mean, even this past weekend against Kansas, she had one of the best outfield snags I've ever seen. It was incredible. And that's the thing. It's not like this team it's not like they're the most athletic. It's not like they're the most physically gifted. They're just really, really talented softball players who are really, really coached well. I mean, as good as anybody. And I think so. I mean, to your original point, I think that's the thing that has stuck out to me the most, is just, again, don't take their dominance for granted. And what we're seeing is really, really special. It just really is.
And I think what makes them so special, Jesse, is that, you think about dominant teams, not just in the sport of softball, but in any sport, right? You have teams that dominate with prolific offense. You think about Oklahoma football, for instance, in the year 2008 with Sam Bradford as the trigger man. They ran away from everybody. We're putting up 50, 60 points on a weekly basis. And then there are the programs that dominate. There are the teams that dominate with elite defense. We see this a lot in professional football over the years. We see this, I think, in the sport of basketball when you think about a program like Virginia and the title run that they had in 2019 with Tony Bennett as the architect. What's special about this Oklahoma team is that not only do they have far and away the best offense in the country, but they also have a pitching staff that top to bottom is lights out. How do you get past that if you're the opponent?
it might be the best pitching staff. I mean, I was going to say in the country. It's certainly the best pitching staff in the country. It might be the best pitching staff that Patty Gasso has ever had, bar none. And that's why when you talk about a program best, like with Oklahoma, that means it may be the best they've ever seen. That's how good Oklahoma's been. That's how good this pitching staff is. I mean, to have Alex Storako, Nicole May, Jordy Ball, I mean, it's almost unfair for opposing teams. And any given series this season, Patty Gasso gives each of them, a chance to start one of the 3 games. And I mean, Alex Storako, Nicole May are number 2 and number 3 in earned run average. I think Jordy Ball's at number 10. I mean, it is just unreal to have this much talent on the pitching staff. But we could go on and on all day about how dominant this team is. I think the reality is Patty Gasso has talked over and over again this season about not overlooking an opponent. And it's funny because she said at the beginning of the season, she said, we're going to lose some games and we've got to be okay with that. Well, they haven't really lost games, but the message has still been don't overlook anybody. And even look at last season going into the Big 12 tournament. They lost to Oklahoma State in the finals. Look at the World Series last year where they lost to UCLA in game 1 of the semifinals. So I think now that's the question. OU's got everything else, but now as we're getting really, really close to the postseason, I think that's the other question is this OU softball team mentally ready for how much they're going to get every team's best. So is this team mentally ready to go and win a third one or a third championship?
What do you think it takes? Even just hypothetically, what do you think it takes for Oklahoma to falter somewhere along the line? Because you rewind a couple of years, for instance, Oklahoma loses the opening game of the Women's College World Series to Odyssey Alexander and James Madison, and the resilience that team showed to claw their way out of the hole and overcome Florida State in 3 games in the championship series. That's also been a hallmark of Patty Gasso's programs in recent years is they get punched in the mouth. They're always right there to punch back.
That's, and that's the thing is this OU softball team is not immortal, right? They're not unbeatable. And that's, I think, what has made it impressive, how dominant they've been. That's what's made it so impressive is they are capable of losing and they always bounce back. But I think if you're looking at potential flaws, and it's not a flaw in this team, but I think the blueprint, if you're an opposing team, is to throw a lot of pitchers at OU's offense and keep them off balance. The one game OU lost earlier this season against Baylor, their offense faltered. They just didn't find a rhythm. And their batting order is really good top to bottom, but they don't have like a super duper star like Jocelyn Allo. Their plan of attack has just been to be really consistent throughout the batting order. And so I think if OU were to falter, I think it's going to be offensively, not defensively. I don't know how much you can bank on that, but that is the one thing is I think if they're susceptible to anything at all, it's possibly getting thrown out of whack. And we even saw against Kansas this past weekend, the offense didn't go crazy. I mean, the offense was good, but the offense didn't go crazy. And so I think that's, if you're looking to beat OU somehow, if you're praying or if you whatever you do to try to beat this team, that's the way to do it, is to try to get them off balance.
Jesse Crittenden, follow him on Twitter at Jesse Crittenden for plenty more Oklahoma softball coverage and insights, and subscribe to this YouTube channel, OU Insider. If you're not already, it costs you absolutely nothing. But hey, if you want all the juice on Oklahoma football and recruiting in particular, the place to be is OUinsider.com on the Rivals Network. Jesse, myself, Brandon Drum, our director of production, Spencer Forsyth, we got you covered wall to wall every single day. Member Q&As happening constantly. It is the best place to be on the entire internet for OU football fans and OU fans of any sport. So hopefully we'll see you over there. We'll certainly see you again on Quick Slants. Take care.